Hello, and welcome to the instructional video for updating your Oracle supplier profile. Uh, this video is relevant to suppliers who have already registered in Oracle to have a supplier profile with the City of Detroit and are now trying to make changes to that profile. Please refer to our video about registration if you've never registered before. So we begin on the familiar Oracle sign-in screen where you'll put your user ID using the email address that you registered with initially and whatever password you selected, and we'll click sign in. You may land right here on the supplier portal screen. It is also possible that you'll see a screen that looks more like this. So if you do see a screen that looks more like this, just click the supplier portal button. It should be the only one under supplier portal, and you'll be in the right place. So here is your supplier portal. And within the supplier portal, you're going to scroll down to the bottom of this left-hand menu and click Manage Profile under Company Profile. Now, this is a screen where you can actually see all the information that's currently on your supplier profile. So if all you're trying to do is check that the information is correct, you can click through these screens and see exactly what is currently on your profile. So let's go ahead, let's imagine that we find some missing information here. Let's go ahead and create a change request for our profile. So we're going to go up to this button at the top right of the screen that says Edit. Click that. It'll give us a pop-up saying that this will create a change request. That's what you want to do. So you'll click Yes. And then it'll take you to this screen with the same menus across the top that you just saw. So very briefly, organization details is going to be very general information about your organization. Tax identifiers is going to be information that's general but specific to your taxpayer ID and country and that sort of thing. Addresses, this is going to be where your company or organization does business. Contacts is going to be the people at your company who have access to the supplier profile. So you may have multiple contacts here who are able to access the profile. Payments is going to relate to your banking information. Business classifications is going to be certifications or other special qualifications. For example, if you're a Detroit-based business. And then products and services, this is one of the most important pieces. So make sure to check this out specifically. Products and services are the goods and services that your company provides. And this is how the city knows to invite you to contract opportunities, to bids that might be of interest. So if this list is correct, you're going to get invited to the right bids, the bids that are most interesting to you. If it's not correct, you may miss out on some. So it's very important to make sure that this stays updated. So the first thing we want to do when we are on this screen is to just create a change description. This is going to be a quick record, just in a few words, what you're trying to change. So in this case, let's say we are going to be adding a new address and a new contact, and we're going to be updating products and services. We'll go through each one of these in turn, but we're imagining a situation where the only changes we're going to make are going to be to addresses, contacts, and products and services. With that, let's dive into the first panel here, which is organization details. So in organization details, you've got a number of fields that you can change, but there are a few that you cannot. You should not change the name, the number, the supplier type, or the status. Those four you should not be changing, but you could, for example, add another, add a website. So, we could just type right in here, www.website.com. And actually, maybe we'll add that to our list of changes. We're adding a new website. So It's as simple as just typing into those fields. Just remember, you're not going to change your name, your number, your type, or your status. Those are locked in when you register. If your name changes, for example, there's a separate process that you'd want to go through, and you can always reach out to procurement in the cloud at detroitmi.gov for more information about that. It's good practice as you're going to click save. That won't submit your request. It'll just save your progress. You don't have to click save each time, but this way, if you accidentally get logged out, the system will have a record of what you were working on, and you'll be able to submit it much more easily. Let's go on to the tax identifier screen. Like before, I do want to note you cannot change your taxpayer ID. The system will reject that change. If your taxpayer ID has changed, you'll need to register under that new taxpayer ID because that counts as your business changing. So we won't change anything here, but if you did want to add a new verification date, you could do that with a date picker. If you wanted to change your tax reporting name, you could do that. This section is not usually going to be changed, but it is something you could change. But in our description, we didn't put that, so we're going to move on to addresses. Now, this one is one that you may well change, right? For example, if your headquarters changes to a different place, you may want to add a new, add a new address. One thing I will note is you don't want to edit your existing address unless you catch a typo or something like that. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so that it's easier to see. So if, for example, you added a new address last week and it's actually 123 Nowhere Street instead of 1234, you could make that change because 1234 is an incorrect address. But if that's your old address and you're now moving, you don't want to change the old address. You want to create a new address. The reason for that is that if you change this address, it will update a lot of historical data like POs, purchase orders, that were issued when you were at the old address. You don't want to change those to your new address. You want new purchase orders coming to the new address. So let's imagine that 1234 Nowhere Street is what was our old address, but we've actually moved to, let's say, down the street. So we're going to go ahead and click the plus sign, which will let us create a new address. We're going to put an address name. Now, we're just moving down the street, so we always have to have an address name, and it always has to be different. So we use Detroit for our old address, so I'm just going to call this Detroit-1. And we're going to say that we moved down the street to 456 Nowhere Street. You can type in the city and the state, but just to save a little bit of time, if you type in a postal code, the city and state will populate. So we're keeping the same street. We just moved down the road, same postal code, and the city and state populate. We recommend checking all three of these boxes anytime you create a new address. This just gives you flexibility later so that we can send purchase orders there. We can send payments there. You can bid on contract opportunities there. So that's what we would recommend checking unless you're absolutely certain that you don't want one of those checked. But in virtually every case, you want one of those. You want all three of those checked. And then you can enter the other information. It's generally good practice to do this. So I'm just going to type in 313-123-4567. So a phone number and then email supplier@supplier.com. All right. So now we have created our address. We've added in a phone number and email just in case someone from the city needs to reach out and confirm something. And we're going to click OK. And as you can see, we've now saved our new Detroit 1 address. And we can now use that address for invoicing and purchase orders and all those sorts of things. But we've kept our old address in the system as well. Okay, so we've added our new address. Let's click save just to lock in not lock in, but let's click save so that it hangs on to those changes if anything happens. And let's go over to contacts. Similarly with contacts, you do not want to edit an existing contact's information. Editing something like the name or the email address could cause their access to be to not work in the Oracle system. So just like with addresses, we want to add a new contact rather than editing an old contact. So we're going to, once again, just like the previous page, we're going to use the plus icon. And it's going to pop up a screen where we can put in the contacts' names. So I'm just going to use my own name here. First and last name are required. I'm going to make myself an administrator. I'm going to put in a phone number. Again, not required, but very good practice to put in a phone number and an email address. Just in case there are questions that come up, you want us to be able to reach you at the right address rather than potentially an older address that's in the system. So this is a good way to tie an email address and a phone number straight to this. You also want to check off the administrative contact box. That's, again, just going to provide you with some flexibility for types of roles that you might need to use. And similarly, you want to check off request user account. Request user account, again, is going to provide you flexibility, and it's going to give you the ability to log in within Oracle. All right. Now, you can also add an address here to this contact. And this is relevant. Let's say that I'm the administrator at the new address that we just added. So we want to connect me to the new address. So we just created Detroit 1. So I'm just going to click Detroit 1, apply, and OK. And now that's going to log in the system that Administrator Adam Kind works at 456 Nowhere Street, and it's just going to keep that data nicely connected so that there are no points of confusion as we send purchase orders or receive invoices or anything like that. So administrative contact is checked. We've added an address. We've requested a user account. Now we're just going to click OK. And what we'll see on the next screen is that I am now added here. I don't have a user account created yet because we haven't processed this change. So these green checks are telling you that the user account is already active. But we did request a user account. We checked off that box. So once this change processes, I'll have the green check mark here. And you want to see green check marks for everybody who might need to log into the system. They should be an administrative contact and have user account checked. All right. Let's save this and look over at the Payments tab. Now, under Payments, the payment method should be defaulted, but under bank accounts, you may need at some point to add a bank account. We do recommend adding a bank account before inactivating your old bank account. So before you start messing around, before you start changing which is the primary and everything, we'd recommend that you add the bank account that you're going to want to make the primary before trying to deactivate anything. So just like the previous screens, we're going to click that plus button. And here there are quite a few fields, but we only have to fill in a handful. So the first thing we have to fill in is the country. Most of the time, this is going to be United States. We've got to fill in an account number. We've got to pick a bank name, and we've got to pick a bank branch. So let's just try typing in a bank name here. I didn't find my bank, so let's go to the search. Okay, so here are a bunch of bank names. So let's say I'm banking with Charter One Bank. And then the bank branch is going to be your routing number. Now, it's very important if you see different name or different numbers here or different city names, the important thing to pick is the correct routing number. In this case, we only have one option, but if you have multiple, what you're looking for is the routing number, not the name of a city. Even if the name of the city is different than your city, the number that what you care about is the routing number. So make sure that routing number matches. In this case, let's say that this is the routing number that I wanted. And then we'll want to pick currency. Again, that's almost always going to be US dollars, and account type. Most of the time, this is going to be checking. So those are the 6 fields you need to fill out. So country, account number, bank name, bank branch, which is really your routing number, then currency and account type, and we click OK. Now that we've created a new account at Charter One Bank, now if we want to switch this, we can go to Actions and click Set Primary. And now the green check moves up to there. Maybe this old one we no longer have. That's okay. As long as you've set the primary correct, you should be just fine. The primary is what's going to be used for payments. If you do need to have multiple accounts listed for different contracts or something like that, we encourage you to email procurement@detroitmi.gov. That's something that we'll need to help set up on the administrative side. Let's leave this change in. So we'll just add to our summary, adding a new bank account. And it's good practice to keep this change description updated, because if you're looking back later, this will be very helpful to figure out what changes you made rather than going through page by page. We'll click Save. We've got 2 more pages to look at. And bear in mind that these changes don't usually take this long, because normally you're adding in 1 new address or 1 new contact or 1 new product and service. So you don't have to click through all of these screens every single time. So in business classifications, very similar to the previous screen, you can click the plus icon. You can look at a list of possible business classifications, and then you can fill in the rest of the information, the certifying agency. You can upload a certificate. All of this is fairly straightforward. We don't need to we don't need to go too far into depth here, but let's just say we want to show that we are a joint venture business. The certifying agency is a different one. We might fill in the name of the agency. Certificate number could be 566. This is the start date of the certification. So let's say it started at the beginning of this year and it runs all the way through the end of this year. And then under attachments, we could attach that certificate. So we just click the plus button, click choose file, and we could pick any document in our files. So I'll just pick one for the sake of example. Click OK. So now we've got our certificate attached. We've got our start date and expiration date. And so this would be a completed business classification. Now, some of these classifications will require verification by the city. So, for example, if you say that you're a Detroit-based business certified by the city's CREO team, Civil Rights, Inclusion, and Opportunity, that will need to be verified by someone at the city. And so you'd see this information fill in as it was verified. But let's go ahead now that we've put this in. It will ask us to confirm the accuracy. We're going to say yes. Adding a new, and we said this was a joint venture certification. So this description is getting pretty long because we've done quite a few things. But that's okay. Again, normally you'll have a much shorter description and you'll be changing a smaller number of things. But now we come to products and services, and this is very much a last but not least situation. You want to make sure that your products and services are up to date. First, look at the list and see, do you have all the products and services you think you should have? Are there any that you don't really provide? For example, maybe you look at this and you say, oh, we don't actually do epoxy and adhesive coatings anymore, right? We don't want that. We don't want to be receiving notifications about bids for those. So just click here to select this line in light blue, and then click the X, and it'll be removed. You can do that with any that aren't, that aren't accurate. But let's say you say, we also do some things that aren't on this list. If you click Actions and then select and add, you'll get a list of all of what we call the browsing categories for products and services. We encourage you to look at this list at this level first and look and see, the general category of what you do. So let's say you do some communications in media. You can click this arrow next to it, which expands it, and you'll be able to see all of the different communications and media options that you can select. So maybe you say, the only thing we do is bookbinding. So you check off bookbinding and then click apply. And if you click OK, what you'll see is that M.03 bookbinding and repairing supplies and services has been added. But opening this up again, I want to note that you can also select an entire category. So, for example, let's say you look at clothing, uniforms, and accessories, and you say, we provide clothing and uniforms, we provide the fabric, we do laundry and dry cleaning, we do shoes and boots. You can click each of these individually, but you can also just click category U, apply, and OK. And now you're listed for category U. That means that no matter what product or service under category U a bid goes out to, you would be invited to that. So it's up to you. You can specify the individual or you can choose an entire group. The key is you want to make sure that you are registered for any products and services that you provide so that if the city has a bid that would be of interest to you, you get notified about it. All right, so we've added our new address and contact, we've updated our products and services, added a website, added a bank account, and added a joint venture certification. We're going to click Save once more, and then we're going to click Review Changes. Now, bear in mind, Save and Close will save this for a later date, but it will not submit it. And Review Changes won't submit either. But what Review Changes will do is let you see a summary of what changes you provided. So you changed the corporate website, you added a new address, added a contact, added a new bank account, and made Comerica not your primary anymore. You shifted the primary to charter. You added a certificate. You added some products and services. So this provides an overview of what changes you made. If this looks right, great. If it doesn't, you can always click edit and go back and make another change. But if this looks right, the last thing to do is click submit. And when you click submit, it'll tell you that your request was submitted for approval. And everything that can be automatically processed will be automatically processed. If there's anything that requires a review by the city, that will be reviewed in due course. But most of these changes will go through almost right away. So that's how to change your supplier profile in a nutshell. And once again, I'll stress before ending that normally this process does not take 20 minutes to do. Normally it's very, very quick because you're only making one or two changes. In this case, we walked through every change you might make, but in a normal circumstance, you might just be adding one product and service or adding one contact or something like that. So now we're all set. The change request is in. It's pending approval. We'll click done. That takes us back to our supplier portal, and we are ready to look at bid opportunities, submit a bid, or go on with the rest of our day. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this was a helpful guide to how to update your Oracle supplier portal.